Hi, I'm Stephen Walsh, and in the following short series of podcasts, we've put together an overview of interpretive phenomenological analysis. The first podcast looks at the philosophical background of IPA, the second one looks at some key concepts, and the third offers a step-by-step guide through an IPA analysis. After engaging with a short series of podcasts, you should be able to discuss in broad terms the philosophical background of IPA, identify the focus of IPA research, and describe the steps involved in an IPA analysis. So looking first to the philosophical background of IPA. Phenomenology and phenomenological psychology is focused on Husserl's idea of a return to the things themselves. What this means for psychologists is a focus on the lived experience of individuals. Focusing on the things themselves, it positions phenomenological psychology as a critical approach that resists the sort of subject-object dualism of positivism. Positivism and the positivist paradigm can be thought of as a way of understanding the world such that there's a real world out there that we gain knowledge of through the application of scientific methods, including quantification and the use of statistics. In contrast to positivism, critical approaches such as phenomenological psychology argue that there's no such thing as a view from nowhere, and hence the importance of studying experience. We'll look first at the philosopher Edmund Husserl. Husserl came to philosophy from an interesting angle. He originally studied astronomy at the University of Leipzig, and he was awarded his doctorate in 1882 for his work in pure mathematics. In 1884, Husserl was persuaded by his friend to go to Vienna to take philosophy classes with Franz Brentano. Husserl was so won over by Brentano that he decided to commit the rest of his career to philosophy. In particular, Husserl was influenced by Brentano's work with regards to intentionality, a key concept in phenomenology that rests on the fact that even when we are conscious, we are always conscious of something. And Husserl's development of phenomenology sought to return to the very origins of knowledge through examining how the world appears to human consciousness. Hence his call to bring us back to the things themselves, because it is only when we return to the things themselves that we recognize how the world is a lived experience rather than an object to be studied. Following Husserl, phenomenology was developed by the existential philosophers, in particular Heidegger, Sartre and Merleau-Ponty. Heidegger, you see him here on the left, he was originally a student of Husserl's in Freiburg from 1919. He's arguably one of the most important philosophers of the 20th century. And to my mind, one of my favourite things about Heidegger is his idea that one of the most perplexing things about being is that people fail to be sufficiently perplexed about it. I think that's a very interesting idea. Heidegger became critical of Husserl, and he argued that Husserl and his followers that they'd become overly inward-looking, with the result that they got lost in their own heads. One of the most important concepts that Heidegger gave to us was that of Dasein, or being in the world. For Heidegger, all perception of the world is grounded in our body in relation to the environment in which we live. Moving on to Sartre, seen here in the middle, Sartre was taken with phenomenology because it offered him a way of doing philosophy that reconnected it with normal lived experience. Above all, Sartre was interested in freedom and the phenomenological idea that the topic of philosophy is whatever you experience as you experience it. It offered Sartre a coherent framework that he needed to develop his philosophy. And seen here on the right we have Merleau-Ponty, who, despite the greater fame of Sartre and Heidegger, it's probably Merleau-Ponty that had the greatest impact on phenomenology and phenomenological psychology. Merleau-Ponty occupied the same chair in psychology as Jean Piaget. He didn't believe that it was possible to have a God's eye view of the world. And instead, he concerned himself with spelling out our experience of the life world. His most well-known work is The Phenomenology of Perception. And he's especially well known for the emphasis that he placed on embodiment. He said our body is in the world, and with the world that is, it forms a system. Another important quote is that man is in the world, and only in the world does he know himself. This is a screenshot of Jonathan Smith's IPA page. Professor Jonathan Smith from Birkbeck. Professor Smith developed interpretive phenomenological analysis, or IPA, as a particular experiential qualitative approach in psychology. The reason that I've put this screenshot up here is that it's a very good resource. This IPA website is a very good resource with very useful references and so on. And I've put it up hoping to encourage you to have a look at it. So, the main points of IPA. It was initially designed to bring cognitive and discursive psychology together. It's an insider's perspective. It has a double hermeneutic, which is the idea that the researcher tries to make sense of the sense-making of the participant. It has a commitment to the person as a cognitive, linguistic, affective and physical being. It assumes connections between talk, thought and emotional status. IPA and traditional psychology come together in their interest in how people think about what's happening to them, and they diverge in terms of their methods.